Hey Beauty Babes, welcome to my channel. I am Maria, aka Agape Love Girl. Thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today I am back with a first impressions review of some new products from the drugstore. And I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the brand new Bold Obsessions palette from Milani Cosmetics, as well as do a little bit of a demo just to show you guys how the products look, how they apply, and just basically how I created this pretty simple look. I'm also going to be using a mascara that I believe is fairly new to the drugstore as well. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I pretty much just got this a couple days ago and tried it for the first time yesterday. I actually did the same exact look that I have here yesterday and was pretty impressed with it, and decided I would just go ahead and film a first impressions and a demo of this look for you guys. And then as I play with it some more, I might do a full review or updated review and a new look or tutorial with it down the road. But for now, let's go ahead and get into my first impressions. It first caught my attention because it looked actually like a Tarte a palette. When I first saw it, I actually thought it was a Tarte from Tarte Cosmetics until I read the description and realized it was from Milani, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so pretty, and it looks so similar to the Tarte's Pro palette, which I do have here because I want to show them in comparison for you guys. I don't feel like they're like a total like dupe or comparison for each other, but they just do look very similar, and you will kind of see that here. So here is the Milani palette. It's this beautiful gold palette. It looks like this. It's got black and gold. It's a very in my opinion pretty high-end looking, so it really surprised me for a drugstore product. And so here is the Tarte palette, which is black, but it does have that, you know, black and gold theme, so that's what really made it look very similar. And so the Tarte palette is quite a bit bigger, as you can see here. In comparison, so the size definitely does not compare at all, but the color scheme and just the theme of the packaging is what really caught my attention here. So as you can see, color scheme does look pretty similar to the Tarte's Pro palette, but clearly not quite a dupe. So my overall first impressions are really good. The shadows are really blendable, very easy to work with, very pigmented. You're gonna see in this demo I apply the shimmer shade. I'm not using any primer or anything like that, and it goes on smooth. It's very pigmented, looks beautiful. I do add a setting spray after I apply it just to kind of amp up the metallic look to it or give it a more of a foiled effect, but you definitely don't need to, and I was really impressed by that when I first used it. Now again, I've only created this look and used these shadows, so I can't really say how the rest of the shadows perform, but I imagine they're going to perform pretty similar, if not the same, as the ones I just used. But then again, there's always inconsistencies with palettes and different shadows, so I'm gonna have to update you guys later on as I continue to play with this palette. When I saw the post on Trend Mood, it said that if you purchase $30 or more, you can use her code Trend Mood to get 30% off, I believe. So I did go ahead and do that. I purchased this palette. I purchased another one of the Make It Last setting sprays, because as I mentioned in my drugstore foundation routine video, that is one of my favorite setting sprays from the drugstore, so I went and grabbed another one of those. And then I also remember hearing a long time ago someone recommended the Milani eyeshadow primer as a really great drugstore primer, and I'd never tried it before, so I did go ahead and grab that. Now again, I didn't use that primer or any primer at all for this look, but I will use it down the road and give it a try in the next tutorial I do with this palette. But anyways, those are the three items I purchased to get over $30 and get 30% off, and my order total ended up being $33.73 instead of $39.28. I did order directly from the Milani Cosmetics website. Shipping was actually pretty quick, so I ordered on January 10th, which was a Wednesday, and received these items on the 13th on a Saturday, so just a couple days for shipping. It was super fast. All right, moving on to a little bit about the palette itself. As you can see, it's fairly small. I was surprised by the size of it. Not unhappy about it, just very surprised. Like, I looking at the pictures, I would have assumed it would have been a little bit bigger than it is, so that was a little bit of a surprise, but again, I'm not disappointed about it. It does have a very nice sized large mirror. You are getting 12 shadows. 6 of them are matte and 6 of them are like metallic or shimmer type of shades. There is no name on them here, but you do get the names on the back, and they are like color coded, so you don't get confused by it. You know, some palettes have the name on the back, but you don't know what color it is, so sometimes they're like labeled directly as they see them, or sometimes they're labeled like when you flip them and they're reversed and you get confused. Or maybe that's just me, but so I really like that it shows the colors and the names on the back as well. And what's neat about this is it says, Bold Obsessions palettes take you from sunrise to nightfall with color saturated mattes and metallics. And you can follow the 3 curated looks or mix and match for endless color combinations. And basically the way they have it here listed is that it says this is sunrise right here, and in the middle is sunset, and then the last side is nightfall, and right here is how they kind of have them organized. So you can follow the looks here and use these 4 in a look, these 4 in a look, or these 4 in a look, and basically it's like more of a daytime, kind of a midday, and then like a nighttime smokier look kind of a thing. So they do kind of have it organized, and I think that's very thoughtful and very nice. But you definitely, you know, can create color combinations outside of those little quads that they have, and I do think that was very well thought out, and is going to make working with this palette pretty easy for a lot of people, whether you're familiar with makeup or just a beginner. So I really like that aspect of it and can appreciate that. Now when I look at this palette, I definitely see all the warm tones in it. Mostly I'm more drawn to warm tones than I am cool tones, but this does have its fair share of cool tones with the black and the colors here. I feel like these shades are pretty cool toned. This brown is very like a neutral, it's not too warm, not cool or anything like that, and so I feel like it's friendly for all sides of the spectrum, whether you like cooler or warm tones. But in my opinion, I feel like it does lean a little bit more warm, and I personally like that kind of a thing. So I'm pretty happy with it, but I'm not sure how many people will, because I feel like, and it's funny because the day I ordered this, I was thinking like, oh goodness, why did I order this? I feel like I have so many shades just like this. This color range isn't anything super new, and like I said, it reminded me a lot of the Tarte's Pro palette. So this shade range isn't like unique, and a lot of people probably already have shades like this, but for me personally, I was like, it's a new palette, I'm really curious about it, it's from the drugstore, I want to do more drugstore reviews and looks this year, so that's the main reason that I decided to get it. I was like, I want to try it and see what I think, I want to do a review, I want to do looks with it, so it's definitely not a unique palette and something that I would say everyone needs, especially if you have similar tones, but it is, so far in my first impressions thought of it, a really beautiful palette. It wears really well from what I can tell, applies well, blends well, the pigmentation is fabulous. Now let's talk about the price for just a second. I know when I was reading a lot of the comments on the Trend Mood post, a lot of people were kind of freaking out about the price, it being $20 for a drugstore, and saying that's just too much for a drugstore, and you know, like it didn't seem right for a drugstore to charge, you know, $20 for a palette. But actually when I saw it and saw the price, I didn't think that's a bad price. There are some drugstore products that I think are way expensive, too expensive for a drugstore and for what the product is, you know, especially for like a single product. Like for example, Physician Formula is a brand that's very expensive. Some of their just single like bronzers or blushes are $12 to $15 or so dollars, and I personally think that's crazy expensive for a drugstore and for a single product, but for a palette, and especially one that looks like this, it looks very, very classy. It's very nice, very sturdy. It's just a beautiful palette, and the fact that the shadows are actually really, really good. I don't think $20 is that big of a price for a nice palette. I mean, how often do you really see a beautiful palette like this in the drugstore? You don't very often. I was looking recently, and I do have a couple other palettes, one from Milani and a couple from Wet n Wild, and while those are more affordable, you know, the Wet n Wild ones are great. They definitely look more like drugstore products. You can tell, like Wet n Wild's packaging isn't anything to give you a wow factor. So while I think the Wet n Wild eyeshadows are amazing, the packaging is just it's just, you know, cheap packaging, and I'm fine with that because it's a cheap, affordable product. The Maybelline palette I have, I can't remember what it is, but I'll just put a little note or a picture of it on the screen. Looks a little bit better. It's a little bit of, I feel like, a step up in packaging. The packaging looks nicer, but the shadows themselves are, I feel like they don't perform as well. They're not that great. It's a palette I've tried to use a couple times, and every time I use it, it's not like I hate the look I create, but I feel like, I'd rather not use those shadows. So there is that. Then now, and then you have this palette, whereas the packaging is really beautiful, it looks very high end, and the shadows perform beautifully. So I think $20 for this palette, yes, it's drugstore, but I feel like that's a very fair and a very reasonable price for that. And I think still very affordable if you're thinking about other palettes that range from $30 to $50 or more dollars for high end. And so I think it's a very fair price, and I'm not mad at it. So that's just my thoughts. You can definitely disagree and share your thoughts with me. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this palette, whether you'll be getting it, already have it, or have already decided that you definitely don't want to get it and that is just too high for drugstore. Okay, just to give you guys a better idea of all the shadows in here, I'm going to do some quick swatches. These will just be finger swatches, since you guys will get a demo of these in action on my eyes using a brush. But what I'm going to do is just swatch them in order that they have here. So I will do the sunrise section, the sunset section, and then the nightfall section, and show each of them to you on my arm really quickly, just so you can see all the shades. Alright, so here is the first row, the sunrise row. This includes Can't Pink Straight, Sands of Time, Suede Side to Side, and Brunettes Have Fun. Okay, next up we have the middle row, the sunset row, which includes Sweet as Honey, which I actually think looks better with a brush. I used this shadow on my eyes today, and I feel like it looked a lot more pigmented using a brush on my eyes than it did in a finger swatch here. So the next shade is Gold Getter, then Blazing Hot, and Red Between the Lines. Next up we have the last row, the Nightfall row, which includes Bear in Mind, which is very, very bare. I feel like it barely showed up here on my skin. Then Slate All Day, Smoke Signals, and lastly is Little Black Dress. Alright, and that about wraps it up for my first impressions review and my thoughts on this palette initially. And with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the demo or tutorial of this eye look. So I'm going to start off first with the shade Sweet as Honey, and I'm just going to be taking that on a fluffy blending brush and placing that right into my crease. Now taking a slightly smaller blending brush, I'm going to go into the shade Brunettes Have Fun, and I'm just going to deepen up my crease and add a little definition to the outer corner of my eye. Now just taking a different clean blending brush, I'm just going to further blend and diffuse those colors together in my crease. Now for my lower lash line, I'm going to go back into that same shade Brunettes Have Fun and apply it with a dense packing brush. I'm focusing most of the color on the outer corner of my lower lash line. Now I'm just going to soften it up just a touch with that shade Sweet as Honey. Now with the flat shader brush, I'm going to go into the shade Sands of Time, and I'm going to be applying that all over the majority of my lid. Now this has really great pigmentation all on its own, and I am actually not wearing a primer today, so you can see just how great it applies and how pigmented. Now, even though that pigmentation is amazing, I think personally, I do want to amp it up just a little bit and kind of foil these a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and apply that same shadow again, but this time I'm going to spray the shadow with some setting spray, and this one is also from Milani Cosmetics, and then I'm going to apply, and it's going to give it a really foiled, beautiful effect. Okay, now just to clean up the outer corners, I'm going to go back into the shade Brunettes Have Fun and just add a touch more there to my outer corners, like I said, and just blend it forward, giving a nice gradient or ombre effect. And lastly, for some brow bone cleanup slash kind of highlight, I'm going to go into the shade Can't Pink Straight. So in keeping this look very much so more simple, as well as keeping this in tune with the Drugstore, I am just going to be using a mascara for my lashes, no falsies today, and I'm going to be using a new mascara. This is the Maybelline Total Temptation Mascara. It's a very interesting mascara that can be buildable. It gives you nice fluffy thick lashes, not so much in length, but if you take a little time and build up a couple layers, you can get a little bit more length, definitely some volume. And one thing I like about it is that it smells really, really good. It's infused, I believe, with coconut extract, and that gives it like this nice scent, and I really like that aspect of it as well. Alright, and that wraps it up for this look. I really hope you guys enjoyed this first impressions review and look at the Milani Bold Obsessions eyeshadow palette. I definitely love to know your thoughts on this palette. Are you getting it? Did you get it? What do you think of it? If you found this video helpful, be sure to let me know. Give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, all that good stuff to give me a little boost. And lastly, if anybody was curious about what was on my lips, I am just wearing this gloss from It Cosmetics. Sorry, it's not a drugstore product. I was just wearing a regular clear gloss, but I just felt like it looked too bland with this look. I've got this like neutral background, this kind of like neutral pink shirt, a very neutral eye, and then the clear gloss on the lips was just a little bit too bland for me. So I threw on this. This is like the Vitality Gloss Stain Je ne sais quoi. Basically gives you, your perfect pink lip, and so I wasn't gonna initially mention that, but I figured people might ask what was on my lips and I would probably forget, so I figured I would go ahead and just mention it anyway. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, much love and hugs to you. Bye, beauty babes. Oh, I love you. Bye. Alright, and that oh, I've already decided that you were definitely like, you know, I like that it also has and my total order, and so with all it has a mix of cool, because